Hello, everyone, and welcome to the RealClear Politics Takeaway for Tuesday, November 23rd. I'm Tom Bevan, co-founder and president of RealClear Politics.
I'm Carl Cannon, Washington Bureau Chief, and this is our last podcast before Thanksgiving, Tom.
Well, and you may notice, Carl, I've dressed down today to honor my Princeton football. Bob Surace, coach of Princeton, congratulations. Another Ivy League title, and almost as importantly, a bonfire. And those who go to Princeton know that means we beat Harvard and Yale this year. So congratulations. Another great season for the Princeton Tiger football team.
I love that, Tom. I'd actually be more impressed, though, if when George Schultz, you and I interviewed George Schultz a few years ago, and he asked you if you knew the Tiger fight song. And I don't know if you know it or not, but you wouldn't sing it. But George Schultz sang it.
He stood there right in his office and sang it. All right, Carl, let's talk about the news of the day. Joe Biden has announced he's releasing 50 million barrels of oil from the Strategic Petroleum Reserve in an effort to battle gas prices, which have been on the rise across the country, approaching $5 a gallon in places like California, here in Illinois. I think it's close to $4 if you're just getting regular gas. I think if you're getting premium, it's already over $4. We've seen presidents do this. This is one of the few tools they have in their toolkit in terms of fighting gas prices. How big of a deal is this? Is it going to matter? Is it a drop in the bucket? What do we know about what this might do based on past history?
Well, it's not enough in itself to bring down gasoline prices, but I think, it's important for the president to show that he knows what's going on with inflation. From the podium, Jen Psaki, the White House press secretary, and the president himself, they haven't taken inflation seriously enough, I think, in the minds of many voters. And this is a sign to me that they are taking it seriously. And I imagine this will be the first of several steps. If presidents are judged by how well the economy is doing, whether that's fair or not, but they're also judged by how well they respond to what ordinary working, middle class people are going through. And you and I know the examples of presidents who failed at that, or at least the perception was that they failed. And Biden's trying to make sure he doesn't.
But Carl, what are the others? You mentioned there are other steps that he could take, specifically with relation to gas prices. Like, what other steps could he take? I mean, he could cut red tape. He could encourage more production. He's actually done the opposite of that. He encouraged his FTC to investigate oil and gas companies for possibly collusion for inflating prices. So it seems like, this is the obvious thing to do. But what else is he going to do, or can he do to help mitigate prices?
Well, a president can't, set the price of oil. But when I meant other things, I meant, what other things could he do? Well, tax breaks for heating oil, things with energy, but other measures, sign a bill that's not inflationary. A president has to act like he thinks inflation is important. What are some of those other steps? For instance, not making a change at the Fed, which apparently he's not doing. So I think there's a series of steps. What I meant sort of a broader inflation. Could he jawbone the unions and the longshoremen and the warehousers and the truckers and the Chinese shipping companies to break the logjam in Long Beach Harbor? Some of these things. I just think the president has to act. He has to get involved, and he has to act like he understands inflation across the board is important.
So, Carl, the other news regarding President Biden is that there was a story that was out a few days ago in the Wall Street Journal saying that his allies, his advisors, were saying that he is going to stand for re-election in 2024. Jen Psaki was asked this yesterday at a gaggle aboard Air Force One, and she responded, that is what he intends to do. That is his intention, which is, interesting phrasing. I guess leaves the door open to him not doing that. What do you think the odds are? I do not see. On one hand, right, it's clear he has to say this, right? What is he going to say? No, I'm not running in 2024 and declare himself a lame duck. We're only 10 months into his administration. He's still trying to pass parts of his agenda. There's already sort of some jockeying and feels like backbiting and positioning going on around him. So this seems like the obvious thing for him to do. Just say, look, I'm running in 2024, shut it all down. And then if he decides to revisit that decision in 6 months, 9 months, a year and a half, whatever, he can do that. But What do you make of this? Is this real? Is this just a ploy? I think he's not going to run. I think is my personal opinion.
I've not thought I've thought all along he'd be too old for 2 terms, but first of all, that may not be true. I mean, 80 may be the new 50 for all I know. I don't know, but the other, for the reasons you said, he's not going to revisit this in 6 months. Our system's peculiar that way, and you can't be a lamed up president and be effective. Mexico has a system. They had 1 6-year term for a president, and they found increasingly they were lame ducks from their first day in office. So you've got to have the threat of reelection to get Congress to do what you want it to do. If a president can do anything like that these days. So he's got to say that. But the other problem for the Democrats right now is that when he chose Kamala Harris as his running mate, the plan was that she's going to be the heir apparent. And as you and I have discussed, his polling isn't great right now, and hers is even worse. And so the Democrats have, they're starting to wonder if they have a succession problem. So for those reasons, and the reasons you said, he has to say he's running, and he has to project a vibrant president. And if he revisits it, I think it'll be, closer to 2 years from now, not 6 months from now, in time for if his poll numbers are up, if the economy's doing better, if the Democrats rebound, as some of them expect they will.
Carl, the presidential race starts immediately after the midterms. If Democrats suffer a wipeout next November, is that the time when Biden would say, look, okay, I'm not running. I'm going to step aside and let the next generation of folks battle it out, and the race would be on between Kamala Harris and whoever else decides to challenge her, which I absolutely think there would be someone? Or would it be possible for him in advance of the midterms to say, you know what, I've done what I came here to do. I beat Donald Trump. I passed some legislation. I rescued the economy. I did all these things. I got the pandemic under control. He can make all these claims and then say, and so, I'm going to tap out and I will not run again in 2024. Would that have a positive effect for Democrats in the 2020 midterm? Would it, if independents are struggling with Joe Biden as president, would that be potentially a move that would help them in advance of the midterms?
Well, I wouldn't think so. Look, he's not popular, but he's not detested. Despite the random NASCAR people chanting and other people, let's go Brandon at football games.
It's not
games.
Random NASCAR people. Okay, I think you underestimate. You've seen the football stadiums, and
whatever. Let's go Brandon aside. What I'm saying is that these poll numbers we talk about. Let's be precise, because we're very precise at our news organization when we talk about polling. It's the job approval rating. It's the same question that's been asked by, George Gallup started it when Roosevelt was president. Do you approve or disapprove of the job, Joseph R. Biden, Harry Truman, whoever is doing as president? And those numbers are bad for him right now. They were never great for Donald Trump the whole 4 years he was president. It doesn't mean you can't re-election if you don't have great job approval ratings. What you're talking about now is something I think a little different, and it's personal unpopularity that drives down, that puts the president as a drag on his ticket. Truman was that in 1946. I don't see that that's where Joe Biden is yet. So I think that's all speculative. But your point about the race starting early is right. I was while you were saying that, I was thinking the earliest presidential foray I think I ever covered came in 2001. It was in March. George W. Bush had been president for 6 weeks or so, and a leading Democrat in the Senate had already pronounced him a failure and was making forays in New Hampshire at a St. Patrick's Day parade, if I recall, to run against him in 4 years. That Democrat, as you may have guessed, was Joseph Biden.
All right. Well, on that note, we will leave it there for this morning. I'm Tom Bevan, co-founder and president of RealClear Politics.
And I'm Carl Cannon, Washington Bureau Chief of RCP. And this has been the RealClear Politics Takeaway for Tuesday, November 23rd, 2021.
Happy Thanksgiving, everyone.